Hey guys, welcome to day 3 of my Cool Treats Sweet series. Today we are going to be making a card. I bet you didn't guess that when you came on. But today, here is the card I made for my sample card. I used the die cuts, the washi tape, and then some of the DSP. So some of the supplies I have are the rolls of washi tape. This comes in a pack of 5, and you get a good amount. Also, you will need a piece of Whisper White that measures 5 1/4 by 4. And then you have your card base, which is cut at 11 by 4 1/4. And then it will be scored at 5 1/2. The inks we're going to be using today are Pear Pizzazz Crumb Cake. And then I have my piece of DSP, which measures 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. And I will be using the solid size. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rectangle die I have in my stash. And this is a great tip if you are very picky with your paper, or you kind of tend to hoard it a little, like I do. It bothers me that I'm going to be using this whole sheet and all this goes to waste. So what I do is I take a rectangle die and I just cut out the center, and that is what I did with this card, and you would never know unless you took it apart. And really all I'm using is the border around the die. So I'm going to go and cut this out and show you what I'm talking about. So here is the die I used, and this is just from my stash. It's not from Stampin' Up. And here are the 2 pieces I cut. So I can save this for another project. And then I have this left over that I will use to adhere to my card base. Also, here's the stamp set up close, and I will be using this die for my little popsicles. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold my card base. And I'm using white because it's going to be covered anyway. I do like the colored card base as a card base, the colored cardstock, but you're not going to see it anyway, so I'm going to use the white since I have mostly white in my stash. I'm going to take my border and then take some snail and go around each side. And then I'm going to carefully line it up on my card base. I have a question for you guys that are watching. Would you prefer a voiceover, or do you like me talking as I work on my card? Editing is definitely a lot easier when I'm talking at the same time. However, it's making my videos a lot longer. So are you one that likes watching a little bit longer video or something shorter? I'm just curious. I would like to know, because if you follow my other channel, it's only voiceover. So just curious, because most Stampin' Up! Demonstrators, they talk while they make their cards. So I'm kind of wanting to kind of see what you guys prefer. So anyway, I'm taking my white card panel and I'm going to go ahead and tear off pieces of my washi tape. I love the striped pattern paper with the washi tape. Okay, so all I do is just take my card panel and then just kind of eye it. And I like the tear, the torn off edges. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're one that likes it straight, the edges, then go for it. And they don't have to be the same length. Then I just take the second one and kind of butt it up against the one above it. And I love how there's coordinating DSP, and of course all the colors go together. I've said it before, I just love when the stuff goes together and coordinates, because it doesn't take much to create a really professional looking card, or a card that looks like you really thought it out. Okay, that overhangs. I'll get rid of some of that. We'll go ahead and take our last one. I'm just going to lift this up a little and tear it. Smooth out the lines. And then I'll do the same with this side. Okay. And then while I have this out, I'm going to go ahead and ink up my sentiment. And we will need more inks. It's just I listed the Pear Pizzazz and the Crumb Cake for now. I'm going to do the Crumb Cake with the Your sentiment. And I got a little ink there, but I'll take care of that. And then Cool. Instead of Sweet, I'm using Cool. And I'm going to ink it up in Pear Pizzazz. Alright. So to get rid of the ink spot, I just used a sand eraser. I will link it below. I did use it in a previous video. Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell this, but it's extremely helpful to have in your stash. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to my card base. And then we can set this aside and then go ahead and make our little popsicles. Now I'm going to just take this piece of scrap Whisper White and I'm going to choose my colors that I want for my popsicle. I'm going to choose Pear Pizzazz, Watermelon Wonder, and Peekaboo Peach. Okay, so I'm going to take my, oh, and I need Crumb Cake too for my little popsicle. So I have my solid, let me get a scrap piece of paper. This is just a scrap white. I have my solid popsicle stamp, and I'm going to go ahead and ink this up in Pear Pizzazz. And it's a double layer stamp because I'm going to take this stamp next and ink that up as my layer. So I'm only using one ink. So I'm going to stamp off this first, get that fuzz off of there so it doesn't show up in my stamp. I'm going to stamp off this first layer of ink on my scrap, and then I'm going to come over here and stamp it and just kind of hold it there while that ink soaks in. Okay, and if there's some variation like that fuzz or hair that was on my stamp right here, that's okay. If you notice on this card, I have some dark spots, but that's okay because it looks more realistic. And then I'm going to take my striped stamp and go ahead and ink that up in the Pear Pizzazz as well, but I'm not going to stamp off. I'm just going to go directly to my popsicle. And there we go. Now, the stamp set has a stamp that has the little bite taken out of it, but the die I'm going to use will do that for me. So I'm just going to keep using the solid. However, the solid stamp doesn't have a die. So if anyone has this suite and has any tips on how to cut this out without fussy cutting, let me know. Okay, I'm going to take my Watermelon Wonder and I'm going to stamp off because I'm going to be using this stamp right here. So I want this piece to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to stamp off this first layer. And go ahead and stamp this down. And then I'm going to take Peekaboo Peach and do the same thing. Stamp on my scrap and then stamp down here. And then I'm taking my layering stamp, the little, I don't know, reflection mark, I don't know if that's what we call it, onto the image. I'm not stamping off because I want this to be darker. And then finally we're going to take the Crumb Cake and I'm going to ink up my little popsicle sticks. Now what's nice about this is that you don't have to be perfect because your die is actually smaller than the stamped image. So when you cut it out, you're not going to have that white border. So you don't have to worry about lining it up perfectly. And when you are lining up your stamp to stamp on your popsicle, make sure you are lining it up with the actual stamp, not the border. I think some people may have trouble lining things up, or if you're dealing with a layering stamp, is that they're lining it up with the border, not the actual stamp. I hope that makes sense. But I've seen myself do that, so you really have to make sure you're looking at the correct image. All right, perfect. There are my 3 little popsicles. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. On this one, I will fussy cut it, but on these others 2, I will use my die. So I will be back. Okay, here are my die cut images, except for this one, I fussy cut it. But these 2 are die cuts, and I wanted to show you the paper so you can see how the die cut is smaller than the actual stamped image, and so this is the ink left over. So let's take my card base. I've gone ahead and added foam stamping dimensionals to the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put these down, and you can do them straight or kind of a little wonky. I like them wonky. And that's it. Really simple, really cute. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And we'll stay tuned for day 4 tomorrow. I have 2 more days. I'm going to take this to 5 because I love this sweet so much. So if you are interested in any of these products, please visit my store. I will have all links listed below of the products used. And if your order is below $150, please use the HOSTESS code. You using the HOSTESS code helps me purchase items for the card club that I will have starting next month. If your order is $150 or more, do not use the HOSTESS code as you will get the rewards. And remember, with every $50 purchase, you receive 1 free product out of the Celebration catalog. So for every 50, you get a free product, and that ends March 31st. So you definitely want to try to take advantage of it before March 31st gets here, which will be here before we know it. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Bye.